Hello, Booktube. I'm Sadie. I'm your host. Sorry, Steve. It's old habit. I've been saying it for so many years now, I just automatically do it. But I am here to do the mid-year book freakout tag, which I was not tagged in, but Britta said anyone could do it. So I'm pretending Britta tagged me to do this. And yes, so I actually have two stacks because the stack was rather substantial, so I've split them up. Question number one, what is the best book of 2017 so far? That would have to be Things We Lost in the Fire by Mariana Enrique. I gave it 4 stars, and looking back, I probably should have given it 5 because it is that awesome. I'm still thinking about the stories, and there were only 2 stories I didn't really like. This is, of course, the first compilation by an Argentinian woman. It was translated by Megan McDowell. I got an arc of it, and I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. I'm not a big short story fan, but that is changing, which I like. This is basically what has started changing, the fact that I'm giving more short stories a try. All the stories take place in Argentina. They're all kind of gritty, but the characters are really beautifully written, and I wish I spoke Spanish so that I could read the actual book to compare. I might ask one of my friends who is a fluent Spanish speaker if she can get a copy of it and compare it for me and tell me if she's really as awesome, just because we occasionally do that kind of stuff. So this is my favorite book so far, and if you don't have it, you should have it. Just saying. And next, the best sequel you've read so far in 2017. Well, I gave that to my mother-in-law. My in-laws were visiting this week. And so I've read a couple of sequels. I read Spiral, which was the sequel to The Ring. And I'm sure I've read other sequels. Hold on, I happen to have my bookie book here. I read Lord of Chaos, which was the 6th book in the Wheel of Time. That was good, but yeah. I read several second volumes of manga. But the one that really got me, and I don't have, is Royal Assassin. I thought that that was the best book of the trilogy, and I loved reading the second book. The first book, meh. Second book, totally awesome. The third book I will put in my wrap-up for this month. It was good too. I would still say the second book, overall, the best book of that trilogy. And I think most people have heard of the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, which is what Royal Assassin is the second book in the series of. It's a trilogy about a young boy who is born out of wedlock, and he is the son of a prince. The king in waiting. And the king in waiting passes away. He is subsequently brought into the folds of this castle and the high court, and the king decides he's going to utilize him as an assassin. Not giving much away because it's Assassin's Apprentice, Royal Assassin, and Assassin's Quest. Everything says assassin in it. So he's trained to do that, and subsequently his life and how that shapes and molds him. There are some really amazing characters. I did not share Mercy's dislike of the repetition. I thought the repetition was just the right amount for me, because if I hadn't read the books all in a row, I would have needed it, and I think that sometimes we forget that people could be coming in on a second or third book by accident. My husband does that a lot. He'll read a second book by accident first because he didn't know there was a first book. I know. Anywho, that was my favorite second in the series. I'm looking forward to doing the Live Ship Traders series next, but that'll be a while because I'm doing it as a buddy read with my husband, and I have to get that to him. New release you haven't read yet but want to, that would be Dead Letters, a novel by Kate Dolan Leach, and it is a mystery about twins. One twin commits suicide and the other twin has to figure out what's going on. This was given a 5-star rating by, what's her name? I can see her face. I'm so sorry. So recently, too. Anyway, I want to say Holly Black? No, that's an author. Ooh. Anywho, one of the many booktubers I watched gave this a 5-star, and that was the first time I'd seen anybody read it, and she said, if you have this, go read it. And it was my book of the month pick, and I do want to read my book of the months relatively before they get out in softcover, because I feel that that's the commitment I'm willing to make. So yeah, this one's going in the TBR pile, and it's going pretty high up there, because mysteries and suicides are all up. They're all my wheelhouse. The most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I don't have one. I just kind of go with the flow. There's nothing where I'm like, ooh, I can't wait till that book comes out. There are a few things I can't wait till they come out in softcover, like His Bloody Projects or American Martyrs, Joyce Carol Oates' History of American Martyrs. I really want to read that, but I'm waiting till it comes out in softcover because I think it's a bit of a beast in hardcover. But yeah, most of the stuff I'm waiting to come out in softcover, I don't have anywhere it's like, ooh, this hardcover, I need it. I also have a lot of backlog that I want to get through, and I'm reading a lot of classics, and that's my big thing this year. So we'll see. But no, nothing. Biggest disappointment. My biggest disappointment is gone. It's in my car. It's on its way to go to a. It's either going to go to a retirement home or to Half Price Books, depending on if the retirement home wants it. And that would be Devil Bones by by Jefferson Bass, which is two different people. It's Bill Bass, who is one of the leading forensic anthropologists in the country, possibly in the world. I would say in the world, but I am a fangirl. And someone Jefferson, who is the actual writer, and it just flopped. Dr. Bass needs to stick to writing nonfiction where he shines. His fiction is it was horrible. And then it wasn't the first in a series, but it didn't make me feel like it was like a standalone. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. It was just poorly written. It was just bad. That was horrible. Biggest surprise. I didn't really have a big surprise. I'd love to say I was like blown out of the water. I guess my biggest surprise was that I really like this book of short stories, Things We Lost in the Fire. I actually requested it thinking it was a book, and it got here and I'm like, short stories, eh? The Canadian came out. It was like, ooh, eh? And I made a commitment, I'm going to read it. And I read it, and as I read it, it took me a day, maybe, 2. I think I put it down at one point, but the biggest surprise was how much I love these short stories. Favorite new author debut or to you? I have 2. Let me rhyme some of the time. So, and they're both new to me. These aren't their debuts. The first one that I'm going to probably buy everything she's ever written is Ludmila Ulitskaya, The Funeral Party. Loved it. Can't praise it high enough. And it's so small. But I am going to pick up The Green Tent as well, which I've seen running around, and I'm just going to keep trying to pick up anything by her that's been translated. This one was translated from the Russian by Kathy Porter, and the translation was edited by Arch Tate. Such an amazing book. So powerful. So powerful. And this is the story of a man who is dying, and he is from Russia. They're living in New York. And a group of Russian expatriates just kind of circle around him, their stories, their life stories, how that intertwines, and as he's dying, how they celebrate life. So good. If you haven't read it, read it. Have tissues. And the other thing is thanks to my friend Heidi over at Undead Yarns, who recommended Last Days by Adam Neville as a horror. And I found this at a library book sale, and subsequently, library book sale, but it was $1. It's $1. That's a lot of pages for it, and it's a chunker, right? Like, you think, oh my goodness. No, it took me like 2 or 3 days to read this. That's how good it was. As a horror, it just pulled me in, and I want to get all of his books and read them because it was so good. It was so good. It gave me the creeps. It wasn't like knockdown, drag out, all out gore. It literally made me not want to sleep. So yeah, amazing. And I'm looking forward to reading more by Adam Neville. So those are my 2. Newest fictional crush. I don't have one. I am with everybody else where it's like I think I'm too old for that, I guess. I don't have a crush. Newest favorite fictional character. That's probably Burrich. Burrich from the Farseer trilogy, the Royal Assassin, the Assassin's Apprentice, Royal Assassin, and Assassin's Quest. My favorite was Burrich. I love Burrich. He kind of reminds me of what's his name? The one that starts with a D from David Eddings' series from the Belgariad. He marries Bulgara. I'm drawing a blank. Either way, that's who he reminds me of, and I love him. Book that made you cry. Well, I had Vanished in Hiawatha written first, but I just finished this last night, and I'm going to do a full-bodied review of this, probably after I'm done recording this. So I'm saying Clearing the Plains by James Dashuk. It's put out by the University of Regina Press, and in association with like pretty much everybody else. And the subheading is Disease, Politics of Starvation, and the Loss of Aboriginal Life. It is a tear jerker. It's even worse if this is where you're from. Even worse. Should be mandatory reading though. A book that made you happy? Well, I don't think we need to get into how much I loved One Day We'll All Be Dead and None of This Will Matter by Sachi Cole. Loved it, read it really fast, like a day, maybe two. Depends. It depends on if I started it late at night. I can't remember, but I remember I was done it really quickly. It made me laugh. It made me choke on my coffee, and I cannot stress this enough that if you are a person of color of any kind, or if you are a Canadian who is not white, these will resonate with you. If you're a woman of color, it will blow your world. Favorite book to film adaptation? Handmaid's Tale. Here's my ancient copy. I will be rereading this at some point this week. I still think the book's better, but I don't like a lot of book-to-movie adaptations, and that's the only one I could think of that was okay. Favorite review? I don't really do reviews. Most beautiful book you've bought or been given? That would be my drop cap books that my husband's giving me. I brought the B because this one's the one that's up next, and I love them, and they're pretty, and they're hardcover, and they're in a rainbow, and sometimes I get to be girly, and that's one of the things I'm girly about. And I have to figure out where I'm putting all these books after I talk about them. I'm kind of not winning. Kind of not winning. I had stacks that made sense, and now they don't. Most beautiful book you bought. I just did that. What books do you need to finish by the end of the year? Well, I picked 6 to show you that I want to finish by the end of the year. And I think this is pretty ambitious on my part, aside from the Bronte, which I'm reading with my husband. The first one is Love and Shadows by Isabel Allende. I picked this up at a library book sale. I've read this before, but I can't remember it because I was like 13 when I read it, so I want to reread it. And I like Isabel Allende. I've read a lot of her works over the years. The Beach Queen by Louise Erdrich. This comes before the other Erdrich books I've read. In I believe. So, no, Love Medicine comes first. So I might read Love Medicine before The Beat Queen. But The Beat Queen, I still want to read all the Erdriches I have. I'm really into her right now. I'm saving this for a rainy day, and I'm looking forward to reading it, which is The Stone Mattress, 9 Wicked Tales by Margaret Atwood. Because it's Margaret Atwood, and she's, you know, she's a Canadian treasure. And I don't like short stories, but after reading The Things We Lost in the Fire, I am more into them, and I think Margaret Atwood might be able to break the curse completely. I love the cover. I think it's beautiful. And true story, she read at the Moose Jaw Literary Festival one year, and The Tent in the Penelopiad had just come out. She did a book signing, and me and my sister-in-law waited in line, and we were like vibrating with joy, waiting to see Margaret Atwood. And before she signed my books, because I had one signed for my best friend Lily, before she signed my book, she grabbed my hand and looked at me and goes, "You're a work of art," because my tattoo was sticking out. So Margaret Atwood called me a work of art, and I started crying, and it was beautiful. Anyway, Margaret Atwood. Love Margaret Atwood. I think it's a requirement. I want to read 3-Day Road by Joseph Boyden, which I have a copy of. I got this at a used book sale. It was like $1.50. I might have actually paid $2 for this. I do want to read it, even though there's a lot of contention about his actual heritage and whether or not he is a full-blooded Indian. There's the Métis, there's the Inuits, there's the First Nations, there's non-status Indians, there's status Indians. There's all kinds of Indians in Canada. The crux of the problem is not that Joseph Boyden has no right to write about Aboriginal people. The crux is that he may have won some money saying he was a status Indian when he is in fact more than less Métis, which would have put him out of the running for that particular grant and prize. However, I've heard this is amazing. It's a bit of a slog, but I still want to read it because I'm trying to pump more Canadiana and more just more Aboriginal stuff. I've really shied away from it previously in my life, so I'm trying to get back to it now. And my mother was visiting at the end of the month and bringing me lots of Canadian lit, which I'm looking forward to. Then I have this beast, Charlotte Bronte, A Fiery Heart by Claire Harmon. I haven't seen it anywhere around on Booktube. It's a gorgeous biography. It's huge, it's massive, it makes me happy. It's got deckled edges. Look at all the lovely, gorgeous writing on the inside. If you're a Bronte fan, this is probably going to make your heart skip a beat. There's pictures and it's glorious, and I want to read it. I will probably read it following reading Jane Eyre. I've had it for a bit. It's probably out in softcover now. I wanted the hardcover. And last but not least on my want to read list is The Heart of Everything That Is, The Untold Story of Red Cloud, An American Legend by Bob Drury and Tom Clavin. And Red Cloud was a Sioux man who existed previously to us. I am interested in seeing how this works out. It's American First Nations, so American Aboriginal, American Indigenous. Everybody, the words keep changing. It's still the same thing. I have a status Indian card, and I will always be a status Indian. But I'm interested in seeing what they do with this and seeing how they portray it. I'm always interested when it comes to historians. There's a lot of good notations in this. There's like that much as notes, so that always makes me happy. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Those are the books I would like to finish in the rest of this year. I'm sure I will finish more, and there will be interspersed in different challenges I try to do. But there you have it. I would like to tag anyone who has not done this. I would take Biblio Atlas, but I think she just did it. So if you haven't been tagged and you would like to do it, tag yourself. You're it. I'll see you again.